Peace and blessings, family. Once again, I have returned for a little bit. It's another edition of Spiritual Food for Thought. Well, family, I hope all is well in your relationship with the Creator. Even though the things in our lives, there's a struggle and there's different things going on that's continually trying to wear us out. It was spoken that, that the saints of the Creator would be worn out, because the darkness of this world, I hear people talking about a thick darkness that's coming and different things like that, and be true as that may be, but the reality is right now, family, without the mind or the spirit, we're walking in this thick darkness. Because as we be honest with ourselves and we look at the world that we happen to be a part of right now, it's gross darkness, family. Things are so dark right now in what we're dealing with. And as I said, those who've been given favor in this world, that's been able to bask in the pleasure of their senses and seeking after the things of this world that ultimately do nothing but lift us up in pride. Because the more we got, the more we have, the more we covet after and all these things. These are things that continue to feed our flesh, family, and make us self-aware. So ultimately, we're separated from the divine will of our Creator under His absolute divine love. So we become a God to ourselves. We begin to deify ourselves, even though we may lift others up and different things like that and admire others. But the reality is, it's nothing but things that cause us to worship ourselves as man. And so the bottom line is, as I've said, as Hasatan has dominion over this world, how did he get that dominion? As he became one with man. And as man was given dominion over this earth for this season of proving out, as we go through this process, as we deal with the forces of good and evil, to try to understand the absolute truth of the Creator and our place within His divine rule. Okay? So the thing is, family, we got to understand what's going on right now. And as long as we're walking in a spirit of pride and arrogance and self-awareness, these are things that can't stand in the presence of the Creator. So the bottom line is, as we walk in our flesh, it's like we're cut off from the Creator, because we are a being that's still in the process of being created. So we are soul and body. Okay, so the reality is, family, this is why, because to be spiritually dead is to be cut off from the divine will and understanding of our Creator. So this is why, as it's charged to us, say we must be born again, it's a second time, because we're born into this flesh. And so the bottom line is, first we're born of the flesh, and that's when we become a living soul. A soul is driven by its desires, because the soul is the spirit of our senses. And so without the divine order or understanding of our Creator under the spirit of His divine love, this would make sense out of all things, as all things now, understanding that all things have a purpose. Okay, and so as we continue to be born of the Spirit, we understand that reality that without purpose, there's no real existence. And so the bottom line is, we must be brought to an understanding that causes us to realize that if that purpose don't line up with the natural order of the Creator, then it's cutting off the flow of life, causing the spirit of death to come forth. And see, the real death that we dealing with right now is that lacking of the understanding of the mind that brings us into submission to the divine will and order of our Creator under the spirit of his divine love. That as we become one with him, we ultimately will become one with each other, our fellow creatures in this world, and Mother Earth, and who he brought us all forth from, such as the kingdom of heaven. This is where we're headed. Okay, and so the bottom line is we need to understand that the hour is late. And I know people been saying the kingdom of the Creator is at hand, for the longest. You know what I'm saying? But the reality, family, that nature itself, like I said, is the pure energy of the Creator. And so the bottom line is the things that we're seeing as nature continues to fight back from the corruption that we have brought into this world. Okay, and we don't understand the what's and the whys. And it's because we out of order. And so the bottom line is to be put in order is to be put in our place. And as we are put in our place, family, this is what ultimately brings forth our salvation. Because this is what makes us holy. Because as I said, divine means one, and holiness means order. Okay, so the bottom line is, it's plain to see as we look at this world around us right now, in the midst of this creation process, we can see that things are out of order. You know what I'm saying? So, as the spirit of truth and holiness that are in us who do understand and believe, family, there's a natural desire for us to come to know our place and our purpose as we come into the presence of our Creator through the revelation and the understanding of his divine spirit. So, these are the things, it said, those who hunger and thirst for rightness or righteousness shall be filled, okay? And as I said, I know it says righteousness, but what makes sense to me is his righteousness. The righteousness of the Creator, which brings forth the natural order of creation. And as we continue to be born of the Spirit, family, we're seeing how this world and this existence is out of order. And it's in violation of the natural order of the creation. So this is why we have all the crap that's going on right now and that we're dealing with, that we've seen, that we're experiencing now, and by his grace, that as we'll see moving forward. But there's a constant opposition that tries to take us off our course as children of the Most High so that we don't receive our inheritance. And our inheritance, family, is the kingdom of the Most High, where we will be operating in a consciousness that's divine and in order and walking in the realm of purpose, that we will be able to serve our Creator in spirit and in truth as he continues and ultimately completes this creation process that we experiencing right now, so that we can come into the fullness of what we and who we are, ultimately being able then, we all will be able to fulfill our purpose and our destiny on this journey to the kingdom to receive our inheritance, where ultimately those of us who do believe and understand will come to that place to hear the best words ever that we can hear as created beings, and that is, well done, good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of your master. Ain't no better words than that. So, with that said, before I go on, family, just want to make my disclaimer. I'm not no teacher. I'm not trying to tell you what to do or what to believe or convince you of anything. The bottom line is, family, the only one that ultimately can convince of the divine truth of our Creator is the spirit or ruach of our Creator, the only one, which is everything that the Father is, that ultimately is in the process of empowering us to ultimately become the children of the Most High Power that we are. You know, understanding that the reality, He sent His Son to come into this world to take our form that we under right now, to communicate with us, to teach us His ways, to give us the understanding of His mind as we're able to understand. Because as our Creator, He wired us. So He knows what makes us tick. He knows what He needs to do to touch our minds, to open our minds up so that we can receive new revelations and truths and things like that, which we have been lacking as we've been enslaved to this world, as we've been conformed to the image of this world. So the bottom line is, family, you know, this is why we must be born again, and ultimately our souls must be put in its place. You know, because the bottom line is, right now, see, in our flesh, as I said, we soul and body. And that's why we live the way we do, in this place of self-awareness. Because to be made spiritually alive is what puts us in our place. Because as our consciousness is brought into that same realm of our Creator, family, it humbles us. Because then, as the created beings we are, as we're brought into His presence, then we come to this place, family, where we prostrate in our spirits. You know what I'm saying? Totally humbled and brought to that place of, Father, what would you have me to do? That's as created beings are, that we are. We come into His presence. That's our response. Okay, so the reality is, family, we need to understand ourselves through the mind of our Creator. Because as we're able to understand ourselves, then we're able to overcome the darkness. You know what I'm saying? That's been attached to us because we haven't been spiritually alive. And that's what the Father's doing right now. Through the revelation of His divine truth, He's teaching us His ways, and He's showing us things about ourselves, family, so ultimately we can overcome these broken vessels that our senses has been trapped in. But because of not the spiritual understanding, we've been run by our desire for pleasure, which is through our senses. Okay? So, with that said, I'm going to move on now. And what I want to talk about for a little bit is the harvest of our soul. Okay? When we talk about the harvest of our soul in reference to the Creator, family, what are we talking about? You know, it's one of the things to me that's beautiful about the Father. He'll bring us to the place of asking questions to try to understand some things that we've overlooked for years. And, you know, because we've been caught up in our flesh. So we don't regard things of the Spirit like we should. It's only by the Spirit of the Creator that's in us, family, that even drives us to ask questions, to try to understand these things. So, you know, being one of them times, you know, the questions being asked of us, so what is the harvest of the soul? What is it? What truth? You know, because in reality, family, until we understand what the soul is, how are we gonna understand what the harvest of the soul is about? You know, as I've said many times, family, the soul is the spirit of our senses, of sight, touch, taste, smell, and hearing. And so the bottom line is, when we talk about what the soul is, obviously the soul is something different from the spirit. It's not the same thing. See, the spirit is our energy. You know what I'm saying? It's our essence. Our essence is energy. And we talk about pure energy. We talking about energy that brings forth life. Okay? Now, if we're operating in the realm of death, which is as we are subject to our senses, then there's no rationale, there's no purpose, there's nothing to tangibly tie together things that's going on right now, you know. And so as a result of the lack thereof, as I said, this is what causes us to cut off the natural flow of life. Okay, so the bottom line is to cut off the natural flow of life is to manifest the spirit of death. Okay? As I said, the creator is pure energy that brings forth life and light. Okay? So death would be the opposite of that. Anything that cuts that light or the flow of energy is the spirit of death. Okay? As I said, family, we exist in this realm of creation. We exist in the realm of death. Okay? So the bottom line is being a creature that was created by the Creator that has a desire to live, has a desire to grow and learn and understand and move about, not staying in the same place. And just because how can we experience truly everything that the Creator is when we are enslaved because of, you know, our circumstances and the choices that we made in life and all of these different things that took us through this realm of understanding the reality that this is not who we are. And there's just something greater and this beyond the things of this world. Okay, so then we have a desire to come into that understanding of what our purpose is and what we're really supposed to be doing. We start seeing ourselves as creatures of the Creator, which are in reality nothing more than one expression of everything that the Creator is. Okay, it's just like, you know, we look at these vessels that we exist in. You know, they're fearfully and wonderfully put together. But it's sin and death that have caused these things to fail. As I said, they will not inherit the kingdom. We have to put on an incorruptible vessel for our pure spirits to be able to exist in harmony. So as the oneness comes forth, family, we'll be able to take our place within this world. So when we start talking about the harvest of the soul, we're talking about the spirit of our senses being put in order. So because the one that's actually supposed to rule this vessel is the spirit, not the soul. Because the soul having its way in this earthen vessels to please itself is the very thing that's destroying these vessels. Okay? This is why we die. This is why we get sick. And all the things that happen to these earthen vessels of the flesh, especially in this time, because the bottom line is the spirit of Hasatan is trying to kill us all off, trying to destroy the Father's creation. Like I said, ultimately the Father's creation is going to be the kingdom of heaven, when this earth becomes one with the perfect divine will of heaven, of the Father. So therefore this earth will be made new, because it talks about a new heaven and a new earth. See, when the purpose for our Creator allowing this to even take place as we go through this born again process, family. You know, he's going to bring this to the end, because it won't be no more need for this, because his creation will be what he's desired it to be, where we'll all be made one with him, each other, our fellow creatures, and Mother Earth, and who he brought us all forth from. Such is the kingdom of heaven. So ultimately and simply, family, the harvest of our souls is our souls being put in its place, because it's ass backwards when we're in the flesh. It's soul and body. The soul desires, the body gets what it desires at whatever cost. Whether it violates another, a fellow living creature, or the earth herself. So the reality is our souls need to be put in check. See, it's our souls that lust for power and control and all the things of this world, because these are pleasurable to the senses, to this body, okay, because it brings pleasure. So, which ultimately, that pleasure, as it continues to lift up the pride in us and that self-awareness that causes us to be more separated from the Creator, okay? So the bottom line is our soul must be put in its place, because if it's not, ultimately our soul is going to lead to our own destruction. Okay, so it talks about it's the saving of the soul. Yes, because the bottom line is our souls is out of order right now, because in our flesh, our souls rule above the perfect will and understanding and the desires of our Creator. Okay, so the bottom line is we must understand that until we understand what the soul is, how can we hope to be delivered? Because as we understand what it is, its purpose, and what's going on, then we can begin to clearly see the process that we're dealing with. If the Father is still birthing us in the Spirit, that's ultimately going to make us one. That's going to bring an end to the darkness of this world and man's selfish desire to rule and control and manipulate the things around him, things that he didn't create. So obviously, how could he truly and fully understand the purpose and the reason for things that's going around him when he has no understanding of self and what's going on inside of him? So this is why, and why we need our souls to be delivered, to be saved. Because the bottom line is, in this realm of the flesh, our souls is totally out of order, family, and we out of touch with our Heavenly Father and his desires and what he truly desires to do with our lives. Because we're so caught up in how we feel, in our what's the word I'm thinking about, our absolute drive to just experience things that pleases us, pleases our senses, which ultimately continues to make us more self-aware and separated from our Creator. So I really don't have that much more to say about this. I mean, it's really pretty self-explanatory. You know, harvest means to gather. You know what I'm saying? And so the bottom line is the Father's in the process of gathering the souls of those that he's chosen through the revelation of his Spirit. The same Spirit that, hey, empowered our big brother, who's the firstborn of many brethren, as his experience opened the door for us to come into our experience as being born of the Spirit and becoming the children of the Creator that we are. Okay, through the revelation of his mind by his Spirit. Him giving us the understanding that we have so that we could perceive things through his eyes. Thus, ultimately, putting our souls in check, which is what that harvest is about. See, when I could understand myself and my purpose and his will for my life, then it's never going to violate yours. You know what I'm saying? Because as your brother, all I desire to do is to point you to the Creator, to seek and search him out yourself so that he can reveal to you his purpose for your life so that you can serve him in spirit and in truth as well. And as we're all able to do that, family, it's ultimately going to transform this world into the new heaven and the new earth, because the Father is going to set up his rule on this earth, and that rule is going to be absolute. It's going to be with a rod of iron, and that means that that kingdom is never, ever going to be broken again, because we as man have come to understand our place and our purpose. So, as what we were created to do naturally, we're going to be able to do those things and express and give the spirit of life to one another in the world around us, okay, by the power of the spirit or the ruach of our Creator, gonna make us one under the spirit of his divine love. And so as we understand these things about ourselves, family, we're clearly free then to be ourselves and not violate the space of others, because it's not natural for one man to rule over another man. The Father didn't wire us that way, just like he didn't wire us to believe things we don't understand. Okay, so the bottom line is this: why the charge to us is all our getting to get understanding in this hour, because until we get the understanding we need for this hour, family, we're not going to overcome this world, but we're going to be consumed by it, because the world as we've known it is in the process of being consumed even as I speak. Okay, now the key is, do we want to continue to be a part of this world and ultimately succumb to the ways of this world as we lose our souls, as we continue to be caught up in the spirit of pride, which separates us from our Creator in the spirit of his divine love? So ultimately, that's a place of existence of outer darkness. Okay, so we are in this realm of the creation process, which is the realm of darkness that we must be delivered from. And the only one that can deliver us from that is our Daddy. It's just simple as that. Our Heavenly Father, our Creator. And until we all have that relationship with the Creator, we ain't got a chance. We don't have a chance to come together even, because it's the spirit of his divine love that's ultimately, as we become one with him, then we have no choice but to become one with our brothers and sisters that's under the same spirit. Because as we all understand our place and our purpose, family, we're free to walk in that then. So this is true freedom, when we understand the reality that all the Father ever wanted us to be is ourselves, but with the understanding of his mind. He never meant for us to imitate the Son or try to imitate any man, because as imitation is flattery. Flattery is not real to the Creator, and he see right through that. So the bottom line is, it must be in spirit and in truth, and that's only possible as we understand. Period. This is why it's admonished to us in all your getting to get understanding. Because until we had an understanding of our Heavenly Father, family, we lost and headed for our own destruction. Because, it was said, our own wickedness is going to correct us. That's what's happening. Because as we stay caught up in our desire for pleasure and self-worship and all of these things, family, the Spirit of the Most High is being quenched in those who aren't His. It's just simple as that. So continue to get caught up, stay caught up in the spirit of pride, which leads to our deception, ultimately is going to lead to our destruction as we resist the will of the Father in His perfect divine order that makes us one, that causes us to love one another in spirit and truth as we love the Father in spirit and truth through the understanding of His mind. So this is what I'm talking about, family. You know, the saving of our soul is our soul being put in its place, you know, alongside with the Spirit of our Creator and the Spirit of His divine love, you know, that gives us purpose and meaning and understanding, family, so we no longer continue to live as gods in this world, you know, because as I said, family, gods is not the Creator. You know, the bottom line is gods are something that's been conjured up in our minds, you know, in the spirit of our pride that causes us to justify our own deification, to have our way in this world just for the pleasure of our senses. See what I'm saying? And so the reality is, when I'm talking about the Creator, I'm talking about the source of all things. I'm not talking about no God. So, you know, God's is for the flesh, and that's what it's for. But the bottom line, in any true, created being, because the Creator put a piece of Himself in all men, that's why nobody's going to be without excuse when that judgment comes. Because the bottom line is, Romans, the 1st chapter, talks about how when they knew the Creator, as the Creator, they didn't honor Him as the Creator. So for this cause, the Creator gave them up to a reprobate mind to believe a lie. Okay? And then the rest of it talks about how men left the natural order of creation and they started lusting after one another. And it mentioned the women also. So the bottom line is, it is what it is. Let the Creator be true and every man a liar. So the bottom line is, family, that's what being born of the Spirit does. It puts the soul in order. So it's actually the harvest of our souls, because the harvest means for us to be gathered and bundled together and then taken to its proper place where it belongs. So the birthing of the Spirit does that in us, because the more we receive His Ruach and His Spirit, that causes us to have an understanding of His mind, that ultimately causes us to comply to what He desires for us to do. And that's to love Him first, and then love our neighbor as ourselves. And then those first two laws right there, those first two commands covers everything else. Because if they in their place, the soul can't go against that, because it's common sense. See, the spirit of truth and the righteousness of the Creator is common sense. It's common sense. But because of the spirit of darkness and ignorance that causes us to hate ourselves, we can't see these divine truths. Thus, the world is in the condition that it's in. So we got to understand these, family. We must be born again, because to be born again is to have our souls put in its place. Because right now in our flesh, our soul is running us. And that's why we're in the condition that we're in. Because we're not operating in common sense. Things that's common to nature, natural affection. You know what I'm saying? Because this is a world without natural affection. That's why the world is in the condition that it's in. So the only one that can save us and deliver us from this is our Creator, by giving us the mind of understanding that we need to stop this behavior of destruction. And so this is why we're going to have to be gathered out of this world. And I'm not talking about no magic rapture bull crap. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Father as he births us in the spirit and put us in order. He can move us to where we need to be, where he desires us to be, so that we could begin to live in a way that's going to be separated from this world. And it's going to be all natural. It ain't going to be none of man's crap that Hasatan revealed to him to bring about this industrial technological age that we enslaved to right now. This is not the will of the Father, and we need to be delivered from it. And those who truly desire it, it's going to be delivered from it. Because that's those of us that know that, as it was said, our ways ain't his ways and our thoughts ain't his thoughts. This world is the absolute proof of that. So we have to have our souls put in his place. That's what the harvest of souls is about. And that's what's going on right now, because as the Father continues to wake us up to the truth of who we are as children of his, it's going to cause us to separate from this world eventually. And our time of being at peace in this world is about come to the end. And we need to be ready for it, because the bottom line is we won't be able to be a part of this world. As we have the mind of our Creator, we won't be able to be a part of this world. Okay? So, I think that's about all I got to say on this matter. But, you know, as I said, family, just try to keep admonishing. Seek the Creator for yourself so you can know his will for your life, so you can be who and what you are in your service to him. No man can tell you that. Only the Creator can tell us these things from the inside, because that's where he dwells, family. He said the greater one is in us than he's in the world. And so he that's in the world is what? Yeah, our soul and body. But only the Spirit of the Most High, which is our essence and the divine love of the Creator, that will put us all in order. Because right now we're out of order, because we don't know ourselves and understand ourselves through the eyes of our Creator. So, with that said, family, until next time, I would say one love and peace out.